Please use a proper knife. Don't use the knife I'm using. It's definitely not the most appropriate one. So this is a pumpkin whole wheat ravioli with a fresh herb and ricotta filling, and then everything was grated in the oven with some gorgonzola and a cheese fondue. Not an everyday meal. You can probably choose it as a Sunday meal, but just keep in mind it is slightly heavy. So I started off by preparing the pumpkin. I'm just going to steam it as usual, and these are just some fresh herbs that we had in our garden. I chopped them up, cleaned them very well. They were quite muddy, and I'm going to cook them with some extra virgin olive oil, some black pepper, and some sea salt. This is the one that I love. It's from my region. And then I'm starting with the dough. So I'm using a whole wheat flour, as I said. As usual, I eyeball everything, but it was probably 2 cups of flour. And for the wet part, I'm going to use the pumpkin. I'm going to puree it, and I didn't film this, but to the pureed pumpkin I also added some salt, pepper, and some freshly grated nutmeg. So I'm just pouring everything in just as if it was an egg, basically. This is how you make regular pasta. And I'm kneading everything until it gets to a smooth consistency. You should possibly let it rest for a few minutes. If you don't have time, just go straight in and roll it out. If you do have a pasta machine, then definitely use it, because it can be a bit difficult with the rolling pin, but fortunately I had someone who helped me a lot. So these are the herbs once they've completely cooked, and I'm just mixing them with some fresh ricotta. If you don't want to use cheese, you can definitely skip it out. What's really important is that the mixture is not wet. So the filling is ready and everything is rolled out. It has to be as thin as possible. It obviously doesn't have to break, but it has to be very thin. You can start preparing your strips. This is the way I like to do it. It's probably not the right way, but it's very easy. So I'm using a pizza cutter and I'm cutting some strips. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to put some of the filling on one side of the strip, and then dip my finger in some water, run it around the edges so that the pasta gets wet and stickier. And then I'm just going to cover it with the other side of the strip and just close everything as tightly as possible. Please make sure that there is no air inside with the filling, because that can make the ravioli break once you boil them. So just press everything down very nicely. And it depends on how much filling you can put on one strip. Some were longer than others, but in this case I made 2 ravioli, so I just used the pizza cutter to separate them. This one was longer, so I managed to do 3, and so on, and you can just carry on until you finish everything. Once you've sealed them nicely, just get a fork and run it around the edges so that they're very nicely pressed together and you don't risk any of the filling leaking in the water when you boil them. So after they were all done, I boiled them in salted water, and one suggestion is to add just a splash of olive oil, or any oil actually, because that will prevent fresh pasta from sticking. So I boiled them for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then I decided that I wanted to grate them in the oven with some cheese. So I added some gorgonzola and I grated some parimigiano on top, and I turned on the grill as high as possible, and I let them cook for about, I would say, 10 minutes until the surface was nice and crunchy. This was the result. It was delicious. As for the plating, this is my favorite dish ever. I love serving pasta in these dishes. I'm taking 2 or 3 ravioli. They are quite filling, and as I said, they are quite heavy because of all the cheese, so 3 were enough, but you can add as many as you want. and I kept this first plating very simple. I sprinkled on some walnuts, some crushed walnuts, and that's it. For the second type of plating, I decided to create a cheese fondue. So I melted some Gorgonzola. You can make it a bit more runny with some water or some milk if you prefer, whatever you like. I removed one of the ravioli and also the crushed walnuts because I wanted to put the fondue in first. So that was it, and then I replaced the third raviolo on top and tipped everything up with the remaining fondue, and that was it. I sprinkled on the crushed walnuts again, and then I love using sprouts in my dishes because they give a lovely pop of green and they make everything always taste a bit more fresh. And I had some leek sprouts in the fridge, so I just added them on top to make, everything look a bit prettier, and that was it. It's the final dish. I really hope you enjoyed the recipe. If you did like it, please subscribe to my channel, and thank you so much for watching.